I'm Eddie Chumney of Hebraic Heritage Ministries, and we welcome you to this week's Focus Israel Report. In this week's Focus Israel Report, we're going to be sharing with you some very big news from Israel, and that is the announcement of the release of abducted soldier Gilad Shalit. He was taken captive by Hamas, which is a wing of the Palestinian Liberation Organization, in a war between Israel and Hamas in the Gaza Strip in 2006. The background of his abduction and the details regarding the negotiation of his release, and then the recent events wherein we now have the agreement for his release. The information is going to come from various news reporting agencies, including those from Israel. Gilad Shalit was born the 28th of August 1986, and he holds dual French and Israeli citizenship. He was serving as an Israeli soldier when he was captured on the 25th of June 2006 by Hamas militants in a cross-border raid. Shalit was abducted near the Kerem Shalom crossing in Israel and has been held as a hostage at an unknown location in the Gaza Strip by Hamas until his agreed release, which came about on October the 11th. Early on Sunday morning, on the 25th of June 2006, Shalit was captured by Palestinian militants who infiltrated an Israeli army post on the Israeli side of the southern Gaza Strip border after crossing through an underground tunnel near the Kerem Shalom border crossing. During the attack, 2 Palestinian militants and 2 Israeli soldiers were killed and 3 others wounded, aside from Shalit, who reportedly suffered a broken left hand and a light shoulder wound after his tank was hit with a rocket-propelled grenade. Shalit became the first Israeli soldier captured by the Palestinians since 1994. Israel says that it will not ease its blockade of the Gaza until Gilad Shalit became free. The abducted soldier's long plight has been an extremely emotional issue within Israel, with large tearful rallies on his birthdays and frequent media appearances by his father. Reflecting wide support for the cause, one Israeli TV anchor ends his daily newscast by mournfully reciting how many days the soldier has been held captive. Lately, however, Israeli opponents of such a deal have been speaking out, warning that releasing top Palestinian militants could result in the deaths of many Israelis and renewed attacks, as well as increased Palestinian motivation to kidnap more soldiers in the future. Israeli analyst Dan Shulftan has called the possible swap deal the greatest significant victory for terrorism that Israel has made possible. On July the 1st, 2006, Shalit's captors issued another demand to the Israelis, demanding that Israel release an additional 1,000 Palestinian prisoners, in addition to all female and young prisoners that they had previously demanded, and also to end Israel's incursions into the Gaza Strip. 2 days later, the captors issued a 24-hour ultimatum for meeting their demands, threatening unspecified consequences if Israel refused. Hours after the ultimatum was issued, Israel officially rejected the demand, stating that there will be no negotiations to release prisoners. In late June 2010, Shalit's parents organized a march from Shalit's hometown to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's residence in Jerusalem and were joined by 10,000 people. Shalit's parents stated that they would not go home until Gilad was freed. On the 5th day of the march, as it reached Madeira, Israel agreed to a German-mediated prisoner exchange deal. Under the deal, Hamas would release Shalit and Israel would release 1,000 Palestinian prisoners. However, Israel stated that the released Palestinians would be barred from entering the West Bank since this location would afford them across to Israeli cities. Israel also refused to release arch-terrorists as part of the deal. Hamas responded by saying that the problem was with who Israel was willing to release, not how many. Hamas demanded that Israel release 450 prisoners jailed for violent attacks on Israelis, but Israel refused to agree to release most of them. In an address, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that Israel was willing to pay a heavy price for the release of Gilad Shalit, but not any price. In exchange for his release, Hamas has demanded the release of 1,000 prisoners. That is, Palestinians serving prison sentences in Israel, as well as all female and underage Palestinians convicted in serving sentences. A major sticking point in negotiations between the two sides has been Hamas's insistence of the release of Marwan Barghouti, currently serving 5 life sentences in Israel for murder. The United Nations fact-finding mission on the Gaza conflict, which released a report in September 2009, has also called for Shalit to be released. In its May 27, 2011 declaration, the G8 demanded the release of Gilad Shalit. On January the 26th, 2009, it was reported that Israel was offering to free 1,000 prisoners in exchange for Shalit. On March the 16th, 2009, it was reported that a prisoner swap deal to gain Shalit's release was close, and the negotiation team was urged to wrap up the deal. Israel agreed to release more than 1,000 Palestinian prisoners, but there were still disagreements over the number of prisoners. On September the 30th, 2009, Israel announced that it would release 20 female Palestinian prisoners in exchange for a video proving Shalit was still alive. The video was attributed to intervention by Switzerland. The exchange took place successfully on October the 2nd. Hamas turned over a 2-minute and 40-second video to Israel. Since 2006, the International Committee of the Red Cross has repeatedly asked Hamas to allow visits by the ICRC to ascertain Shalit's condition of detention and treatment, but Hamas refused the request. An ICRC representative said that under international humanitarian law, Shalit is entitled to regular and unconditional contacts with his family. On June 25, 2007, the Israeli human rights organization B'Tselem issued a statement saying, "International humanitarian law absolutely prohibits taking and holding a person by force in order to compel the enemy to meet certain demands while threatening to harm or kill the person if the demands are not met, and thus holding Shalit as a hostage to their demands is a war crime." The organization also noted that denying access to ICRC visitations is also a violation of international law. Israeli NGO Monitor said that Shalit's abductors breached several provisions of the Third Geneva Convention: the right to humane treatment, Article 13, the right to have knowledge of a POW's location, Article 23, and the right to unfettered access to the Red Cross, Article 126. Human Rights Watch has also stated that Hamas authorities are obligated by the laws of war to allow Shalit to correspond with his family, and noted that 3 letters and a voice recording cannot be counted as regular correspondence. HRW has also called to receive visits from the ICRC and said that prolonged incommunicado detention of Shalit is cruel and inhumane and may amount to torture. Hamas has refused requests from the ICRC to allow it to visit Shalit and claims that any such visit could betray the location where Shalit is being held captive. Multiple human rights organizations have stated that the terms and conditions of Shalit's confinement are contrary to international humanitarian law. To date, the only contact between Shalit and the outside world since his capture has been 3 letters, an audio tape, and a DVD that Israel received in return for releasing 20 female Palestinian prisoners. Tuesday night, October the 10th, the Israeli cabinet, by a majority, of 26 approved the agreement with Hamas for the release of Gilad Shalit. 3 ministers opposed the deal. The Israeli soldier will gain his freedom probably next week after he was hidden by Hamas in the Gaza Strip for more than 5 years. Israel will hand over 1,027 Palestinian terrorists, cutting short the life sentences of 280 mass murderers responsible for hundreds of Israeli deaths. Among them are Israeli Arabs and East Jerusalem residents convicted on charges of terrorism as concessions made by Israel to clinch the deal. Of the 110 allowed to return to the West Bank and Jerusalem, 55 are members of Hamas. All Israel's security chiefs, from Defense Minister Ehud Barak, the Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Benny Gantz, the Shin Bet Director Yoram Cohen, and Mossad head Tamir Pardo, approved the exchange, which requires Israel to pay the highest price ever to secure the release of one soldier. It means that hundreds of arch-terrorist, high-profile activists will be turned loose, although most face deportation overseas, some to Turkey or to the Gaza Strip. None is immune from punishment should they repeat their crimes, the Shin Bet director promised. However, Hamas political leader Khaled Mashal, who signed the exchange deal, vowed to continue efforts to kidnap Israeli soldiers to obtain the release of more prisoners. The Shalit abduction was not the last, he said. We got 1,027 out of jail and will recover the remaining 8,002. He was strongly echoed by radical Palestinian leaders in the Gaza Strip as they prepared a hero's welcome for the homecoming terrorists. The full list is due to be published later Wednesday, October the 11th on the internet. Israelis wishing to appeal against the releases, such as the bereaved families of terror victims, will have 48 hours to do so. But Netanyahu's acceptance of the deal is widely popular and unlikely to be challenged. The parents of Gilad Shalit are finally folding their tents opposite Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's residence in Jerusalem after a year and 2 months of occupancy and 5 years of ceaseless campaigning across the world. They swore that they would not go home and return to their lives until they could take Gilad with them. The prisoner swap approved by the Israeli cabinet to release Shalit is the best deal possible, Shin Bet Chief Yoram Cohen said Wednesday, while noting that the release of 1,000 prisoners would likely increase Hamas's motivation to attack Israel and try to abduct more soldiers. If there had been a better deal or a viable military option, we would have chosen it, Cohen told reporters during a briefing of Shin Bet headquarters. I think this is a tough and difficult deal, but it's the best deal for Israel from a security perspective. It is not simple to release 280 murderers. Hamas will be strengthened by this, and Fatah will likely be weakened, and this might even increase motivation for more attacks and kidnappings, he said. Hamas leader Khaled Mashal on Tuesday night called the deal to exchange Gilad Shalit for over 1,000 Palestinian prisoners a great achievement. We are happy with this great achievement, and we thank our God for that, but our happiness is mixed with sorrow because we were not able to gain the freedom of all Palestinian prisoners, Mashal said from Damascus, speaking in a televised speech. This is a historic deal, Abu Abeda boasted. Hamas will remain faithful to the cause of the prisoners and will continue to work toward securing the release of all of them. Well, this concludes this week's Focus Israel report. Until we do it again, Shalom in Yeshua the Messiah. Amen.